Hey there, it's Karenology. If you think you've heard it all, wait until you hear this wild story. The sirens were still echoing through the canyons when they cuffed Aunt Karen in her flowery blouse and dragged her past my trailer. She didn't scream. She didn't need to. Her eyes burned with a hatred only someone who had been completely outplayed could muster. And I just stood there, arms crossed, dirt still on my hands from fixing the busted generator out back. I didn't plan to win this war. I planned to be left alone. But sometimes silence is the most dangerous battlefield. 6 months earlier, I'd parked my trailer on the edge of the desert, hoping to finally get some peace. 42 years of life behind me, 20 of them spent in uniform, the last 5 dealing with a messy divorce and a daughter who barely texted back. I wasn't looking for redemption. Just a quiet stretch of land, a dog that listened, and no more orders. That illusion lasted all of 3 weeks. The first letter from the Homeowner Association came in a cream-colored envelope, the kind that tried to look friendly, but always smelled like trouble. Your trailer violates community aesthetic guidelines. No name, no signature, just a printed warning and a deadline? I laughed. The desert didn't care how my home looked. Neither did I. But apparently, someone did. My nearest neighbor, Neil, dropped by that evening. Wore a crisp polo and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just a heads up," he said, hands in his pockets, eyes on my satellite dish. The association can be particular. Best not to ruffle feathers. I'm not here to ruffle anything, I told him. Just trying to live. He nodded like he understood, but he lingered, eyes scanning the property, like he was inventorying it for someone else. When he finally left, the silence returned. But it felt different, thinner, like something was listening. A week later, another letter. This time about my antenna. Then my solar panels. Then the gravel I used to keep the dust down. Each notice came with a fine. Small at first, then bigger. I ignored them. I knew the law. My land was outside the formal boundaries of the association. Their claims were bluffs. Legal smoke bombs designed to scare me off until they escalated. It was just after midnight when I heard the engines. 3 motorcycles, no plates, engines low and throaty, like wolves prowling. They didn't knock, didn't need to. One of them walked right up and smashed my security camera with a bat. Another lit a cigar and let the smoke drift into my window. The third left a note pinned to my front step with a knife. Some rules are worth enforcing. They left as quietly as they came, but they didn't need to stick around. Message received. What they didn't know was that I'd lived through worse. Much worse. And I didn't scare easy. The next morning, I dug out the waterproof case I kept under the floorboards. Inside, a burner phone, a tactical notebook, an old Army-issued sidearm I hadn't touched in years. I placed it all on the table, next to my coffee, and stared out the window. I wasn't going to war? Not yet. First, I needed information. I started with the bikers. Tracked one to a nearby bar in town. The kind of place where the jukebox only played outlaw country, and everyone had more tattoos than teeth. I didn't approach, just observed. One of them, tall, bald, snake tattoo coiling up his neck, was on the phone, arguing. I recorded what I could from my car. When he left, I followed. He drove to a garage on the outskirts and met with someone I never expected. Neil. They shook hands like old friends. Neil handed over a manila envelope. I had questions. Lots of them, but no proof. So, I called Joe. We served together overseas. Him in intelligence, me in operations. These days, he ran a private investigations firm and owed me more favors than he could count. I need dirt, I said, on a woman named Karen and a neighbor who thinks he's clever. You always find the fun ones, he laughed. Give me a week. It didn't take that long. By day 5, Joe had traced Karen's connections to the biker gang. Her son was one of them. The others had records ranging from assault to extortion. The Homeowner Association? Just a front. A shell organization Karen had been using to launder money from a community improvement fund into personal accounts and cash payouts. Neil? He was her enforcer. The friendly neighbor routine was just cover. I stared at the files Joe sent, flipping through the photos and bank statements with a quiet fury building in my chest. I hadn't come looking for a fight, but it had come for me. I placed a single call to the local news outlet. Gave them a teaser. How much do you know about your homeowner association president? The journalist, a woman named Trish, smelled blood. She promised a visit. I promised her exclusivity. That night, I sat outside under the stars, with my coffee and a loaded recorder in my pocket. The desert was quiet again. But not for long, because I wasn't done, and neither were they. Trish arrived 2 days later in a dusty red sedan with a cracked windshield and more energy than a desert storm. She stepped out with a press badge, a recorder, and eyes that had seen their share of small-town corruption. "You're the guy who poked the Karen nest," she said, before I could even offer coffee. I just smiled and motioned toward the porch. We talked for an hour. I laid out the fines, the letters, the midnight visitors. Showed her the footage of Neil handing the envelope to the biker, the smashed camera, the recordings from my scanner. When I showed her the file Joe had sent me, bank statements, shell companies, Karen's connections, her smile turned sharp. This could make your life a lot more dangerous," she said, almost too calmly. Hasn't been safe in a while." She asked for time to verify everything. I gave her copies and my blessing. "Just make sure if something happens to me, someone publishes it." She nodded. "Consider it done." That night, I heard the bikes again. But this time, I was ready. I'd installed motion lights and infrared sensors along the perimeter. I wasn't looking to kill anyone. I just wanted them to know I wasn't bluffing. When the first biker crept up the drive, the whole place lit up like an airport runway. A loudspeaker clicked on, and my voice thundered, "You're trespassing on private land. Leave now, or law enforcement will be notified." They scattered like cockroaches, but the message wasn't for them. It was for Karen. The next morning, I found a note under my windshield wiper. "You've been warned." No signature, just a red lipstick smear. Subtle as a hammer. I sent it to Joe. He ran the print and confirmed it. Karen. She'd gotten sloppy. That same day, Neil dropped by again. No polo this time. Now he wore a hoodie and sunglasses, looking like a bad spy movie extra. "We need to talk," he said. Go ahead. Porch is open." He hesitated. "They're getting nervous. You're stirring up more than you realize." "I realize just fine. You're going to push this too far." I looked him dead in the eye. "I haven't even started." He left without another word. 2 nights later, Trish published the first article. It didn't name names yet, but it hinted. Local Homeowner Association under scrutiny for misuse of funds and suspected intimidation tactics. The town exploded. Social media lit up. Neighbors I hadn't even met started whispering, then knocking on my door. Some wanted to help. Others warned me to stop. But the best surprise came from Martha. Martha was 70 if she was a day. Lived 2 trailers down, wore denim overalls, and smelled like peppermint and diesel. I thought she barely noticed me. "I read the article," she said. "About time someone lit a fire under these snakes." "You knew?" "Han, I've been watching this circus since '98. Karen's been running this place like her personal kingdom. You want dirt? I've got archives." She brought out a shoebox of old newsletters, meeting minutes, handwritten notes. Years of passive resistance, all neatly cataloged. With Martha's help, and Joe working the digital side, the picture grew clearer. Karen had turned the association into a money laundering operation with the help of her son's biker crew. They issued fake improvement projects, charged residents, funneled the funds into shell companies, and used threats to silence anyone who questioned it. We weren't just up against a nosy neighborhood committee. We were up against organized corruption. The pressure built fast. Karen tried to do damage control, emergency meetings, PR spin, even offering me a private deal. "Drop this, and the fines go away," Neil said on her behalf. "We'll leave you alone." Too late," I told him. "You already woke me up." Then the sabotage began. My water tank was punctured, tires slashed, solar panels shattered, and one night, someone tried to torch the trailer. The fire didn't catch. I'd fireproofed the perimeter, but it was enough to make my blood boil. I called Joe. "Time to escalate," he agreed. We sent everything we had to Trish. The new attacks, the files, Martha's documents. She was already prepping a full exposé, but Karen wasn't going down easy. The next day, she held a community event. Barbecue, bounce house, free lemonade, a PR stunt. I went anyway. She saw me and smiled like we were old friends. "So glad you could join us." "I came for the food," I said, taking a plate. "Hope it's not poisoned." Her eyes narrowed. "You've made yourself a lot of enemies." "Nothing new." Then she leaned in. "You think people will believe your little story? You're just a bitter old vet in a trailer? Then why are you so nervous?" She didn't answer. The event ended with police showing up. Someone had slashed all 4 of my tires again, in public during the cookout. Trish filmed everything. And still, I wasn't done, because the next move would hit her where it hurt the most. Her son's name was Trent. 26, ex-con, and full-time enforcer for the biker crew that called themselves the Dust Vultures. Joe sent me a dossier the size of a phone book. Mugshots, arrest records, parole violations, and a photo of him with Karen, arms around each other, smiling like they were posing for a Christmas card. The same guy who left a knife in my porch step with a threat now had a name, a face, and a weakness: ego. I didn't want revenge. I wanted exposure. So I baited the hook. I found Trent's hangout, a dilapidated pool hall south of the highway, where the ceiling fans didn't work and the jukebox skipped every third track. I walked in like I owned the place, ordered a soda, and waited. Took him 20 minutes to notice me. "Oh, "You're the trailer guy?" he said, swaggering over, sunglasses on inside, leather vest unzipped to show off a chest full of bad decisions. And you're the disappointment your mother raised," I answered, calm as still water. He lunged. I ducked, stepped aside, and let him swing wide into the jukebox, which finally shut up. A couple of his buddies stood, but I raised a phone. "Smile, you just violated parole." He froze. "Try anything, and this footage goes straight to the state parole board. I hear they're not fond of arsonists." He sneered, but backed off. I left without a scratch, but with exactly what I needed: proof of aggression, caught on camera, and a reaction that told me he'd crack under pressure. That same night, I sent the footage to Joe and Trish. She added it to her next article. This one didn't hold back. Full names, dates, accusations backed by documents, quotes from residents, and screenshots of HOA emails that looked more like mob threats than neighborly reminders. The internet exploded. Residents from other neighborhoods started chiming in, sharing stories about their own abusive homeowner associations. Hashtags started trending. Karen had gone national, but it also meant she was cornered. And cornered animals are dangerous. The next night, someone fired a shotgun blast through my front window. I hit the floor, grabbed my sidearm, and rolled to the shadows. Whoever it was didn't stick around. Just a warning shot. But it could have been worse. Glass everywhere. My dog, Max, was shaken but unhurt. I was done playing defense. I called the sheriff directly. Explained everything. Sent him a folder with every file I had, plus a note. "When one of them kills someone, this will be Exhibit A." To my surprise, he called back. "You have my attention," he said. "Meet me tomorrow." We met at a diner an hour outside town. Neutral ground. Sheriff Yates was older, grizzled, and wore tired like a second uniform. He listened as I laid it all out. The corruption, the threats, the evidence. He leaned back. "I've heard whispers about Karen. But this is war. She started it. I'm just making sure she can't finish it." Yates agreed to quietly open an investigation. But I need time. I can't move without solid warrants. Keep the pressure on. Make her slip. I could do that. Meanwhile, Neil was unraveling. He came by again, this time at night, looking pale, twitchy, paranoid. "I didn't sign up for this," he said. "She promised it would be clean. Just scare you off. Now there's press, cops, and you. You have a conscience now?" He swallowed. "I want out." Then give me something useful." He hesitated, then handed over a flash drive. Meeting recordings. HOA board meetings. Real ones. Not the public versions. I played one that night. Karen's voice, cold and sharp. "We own this community. If anyone steps out of line, we step on them. No exceptions." Another board member asked, "What about the guy in the trailer?" Karen, "I'll handle him, personally." And now she would have to explain that publicly. Trish uploaded the recordings with the third article. This time, local TV picked it up, then national. Karen tried to issue a statement. Doctored files, misinformation, victim of a smear campaign, but her voice was on those tapes, and her son was already back in county lockup for parole violations. No one was buying the spin. The community turned fast. Residents demanded an emergency vote to dissolve the HOA. Protest signs went up. "We are not Karen's kingdom." Martha led a group of retirees in a march down the main street with homemade banners and air horns. Even Neil stood up at the next meeting and said, "I was wrong." Karen was losing grip, so she did the unthinkable. She ran for mayor. Yep, announced her candidacy the same day the fourth article went live. Claimed she was a victim of defamation and only wanted to bring order and pride back to the town. It was desperation. Plain and simple. But it meant the war was going to get louder, uglier, and much, much more public. And I was ready, because I had one more move left. Karen's campaign posters went up overnight. Her smug face plastered over every power pole, smiling like she hadn't just orchestrated a domestic terror campaign from a garden club. The slogan was worse: restore order, reclaim pride. I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw it. But what made it worse? People were actually buying it. Small towns have short memories and long grudges. Some folks didn't care about corruption. They just wanted the potholes filled and the trash picked up. Karen promised that and more. She held rallies, kissed babies, shook hands with people she'd fined last month, and blamed everything on Homeowner Association. Rogi Chahwi Kwarkyar Ye Conspiracy of Outsiders. Guess who topped that list? But I wasn't going to let her rewrite the script. While she played politics, I gathered allies. Real ones. Martha introduced me to Leo, a retired judge who'd been quietly documenting HOA abuses for years. They buried complaints, he said. Twisted bylaws, pocketed settlement funds, but no one wanted to fight them. Well, I said, they picked the wrong guy this time. Leo had connections. He got us a meeting with a state ethics investigator. Someone actually willing to listen. We handed over the flash drive, the financials, video of Trent threatening me, and HOA communications that read like mob memos. In parallel, Trish launched a podcast. First episode, The Queen of HOA. It went viral. She interviewed former board members, residents, even a whistleblower, who claimed Karen had bribed a local contractor to fake improvement projects. Karen responded by doubling down, filed a defamation lawsuit against Trish, sent a cease and desist letter to me. I posted it on my front door like a trophy. Then came the bombshell. One of the dust vultures flipped. Joe tracked him down in a motel 3 towns over, scared out of his mind, and ready to trade information for protection. He gave us everything: where the money went, who delivered it, how Karen coordinated with her son to discourage resistance. But the real kicker? A voice memo. Karen speaking calmly, saying, "If we don't neutralize him soon, we'll lose the whole game." I sent that straight to Sheriff Yates. The next morning, a squad car parked across from my trailer. Not to arrest me, to guard me. Public support began to shift. Karen's numbers dipped. People started asking questions. Some of the residents who used to avoid me now brought over pies, nods, or quiet thanks. But I knew the fight wasn't over, because while Karen was bleeding support, she still had influence. She pushed a local ordinance vote that would let the Homeowner Association reclaim powers they'd lost years ago. Zoning, enforcement, even limited policing authority. If it passed, she could shut me down legally. I needed a counterpunch. So I called a town hall. Martha, Leo, Neil, now fully on our side. Trish and I organized it at the community center. I stood in front of a crowd that used to cross the street to avoid me. Told them everything, who I was, what they'd done, and why I couldn't stay quiet. I didn't come here to fight, I told them. But when a woman sends criminals to threaten me, when she sets fire to my home and calls it justice, I don't care if she promises new sidewalks. I care about truth. Trish played the audio clip. The crowd went silent, then murmurs, then anger. People started yelling. Not at me, but at the HOA board members sitting in the back. One man shouted, "You fined me for a bird bath." Another, "I paid $3,000 for a fence that was never built." The dam cracked. The next day, over 100 residents signed a petition to block the ordinance vote and request a full audit of the Homeowner Association's finances. Karen called it sabotage. I called it justice in motion. But Karen wasn't done. That night, someone left a dead coyote on my doorstep. Its eyes were gone. Its body marked with spray paint. Next, Max growled for hours. I didn't sleep. Joe traced the paint to a hardware store outside town. Security footage showed Trent buying it 2 days earlier. We had him. Sheriff Yates agreed. It was enough. He coordinated with state police to execute simultaneous warrants. One for Karen's house, one for Trent's hideout, and one for the HOA office. But before they could act, Karen made her final move. She held a press conference, stood in front of City Hall, flanked by loyalists, and declared, "This community is under attack by forces who want chaos. I am the last defense against anarchy." I watched on a borrowed TV in Martha's trailer, surrounded by allies, holding a copy of the arrest warrant Yates had just sent me. Let her have her moment," I said. "She won't get another." The morning of the raid, the air felt different. Heavy, charged, like the seconds before a thunderclap. Sheriff Yates sent word that it was go time. State troopers moved at dawn. One team hit Trent's hideout on the edge of county lines. Another converged on the HOA office. And the last, the one everyone wanted to see, arrived at Karen's front gate. She lived in a custom-built stucco house on the hill, surrounded by manicured hedges and a wrought iron fence she fined 3 neighbors for copying. By the time I arrived with Trish and Joe, the cameras were already rolling. Lights flashed, reporters barked questions, and Karen, still in her satin robe and curlers, was being led to a squad car. She didn't speak, just stared straight ahead, defiant, jaw clenched. I'd seen that look before, in combat zones, on the faces of people who'd just realized their world wasn't untouchable. Trent was taken in without incident. Officers found illegal firearms, burner phones, stacks of HOA documents, and a ledger titled Community Adjustments. It read like a list of hits. My name appeared 3 times. The HOA office yielded more treasures, forged invoices, doctored meeting notes, a hidden safe containing $47,000 in cash, and a backup drive with enough evidence to keep a DA busy for months. Every domino fell in perfect sequence. Martha called it a symphony of justice. I liked that. Karen was booked on charges ranging from fraud to conspiracy to intimidation. Her bail was denied. Trent's too. Neil agreed to testify in exchange for protection. And just like that, the empire she built on fear and fines crumbled in a single morning. But the town wasn't done bleeding. With the HOA dismantled, chaos followed. Confused residents flooded the town hall with questions. Who would handle disputes now? Were their fines still enforceable? Could they paint their garages pink? The vacuum left behind wasn't just administrative, it was emotional. People had lived under Karen's thumb for so long, they forgot what choice felt like. So I stepped forward, not as a leader, not even as a hero, just as a man who saw what silence cost. I organized a community assembly. No titles, no board, just voices. We filled the gymnasium of the local high school with folding chairs and anxious faces. I handed out flyers. Your voice matters again. At first, people were skeptical, suspicious. But when Leo stood up and offered to form a volunteer mediation council, free, transparent, accountable, heads started nodding. Then Martha spoke. We forgot we were neighbors. Time to remember. Applause followed. Real, thunderous applause. I hadn't heard that sound since the Army retirement ceremony I skipped, because I didn't think I deserved it. By the end of the night, we had a plan. A provisional committee of 5 residents, rotating responsibilities every month. Disputes would be logged and resolved through a public forum. No fines. No secret meetings. Just sunlight. The town began to heal. Slowly, uneasily, but visibly. Still, not everyone forgave. Some of Karen's old allies tried to rebrand themselves, claiming they never knew what she was doing. But the people remembered. Trish's final article sealed it. The Fall of a Paper Queen. In it, she detailed the rise and fall, the lies, the betrayals, and the quiet resistance that undid it all. And then came the letter, delivered by hand. A man in a suit, no badge, no agency named, just a sealed envelope and a polite nod. Inside, a formal request to testify before a state corruption panel. They wanted me to speak, to explain how one man and a few neighbors took down a machine built on intimidation. I said yes, but before I left town, I made one last stop. Karen's house had been seized. The bank was prepping it for auction. The wrought iron gate now creaked in the wind. Her flower beds withered, her mailbox open and empty. I stood at the edge of the driveway and whispered, "You should have just let me be." "Ya allons see." Max barked once, then laid down beside me. I didn't stay long. That night, we celebrated. A real cookout this time. No passive-aggressive lemonade. Just burgers, cold drinks, and music played too loud. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone brought fireworks. I stood by the grill, flipping patties, surrounded by people who used to see me as the crazy loner in the trailer. Now they just called me by name. "Hey, you gonna run for mayor next?" someone yelled. "Not unless y'all want curfews and push-ups," I called back. Laughter followed. It didn't erase what happened. Nothing could. But it proved something important. We weren't just a town anymore. We were a community again, and the war was finally over. Or so I thought, because at the edge of the party, standing in the shadows by the oak tree, I saw a familiar face. One of the other dust vultures, and he was smiling. He was leaning against the tree like he belonged there. Arms crossed, boot tapping the dry grass. Half grin stretched across a face I remembered all too well. His name was Doyle. Shorter than the others, but meaner. A guy who laughed when things caught fire. He didn't move when I spotted him, just raised a hand like we were old pals sharing a secret. Max growled. I stepped away from the grill, grabbed my water bottle, empty, and made my way towards the tree. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just watched me come. "Nice party," he said, voice low and gravelly. "Shame about what's coming." "Don't," I warned, every nerve in my body going hot. I'm not here to fight," he said, palms up. "Just observing. You took down the queen. That makes you the king now, right?" I'm nothing," I said. "I live in a trailer with a dog and a bad back." Yeah, but people listen to you, and that makes you dangerous." He turned, started walking away, then paused. "Karen's done, but not all of us were loyal to her. Some of us were loyal to what she built. There's a difference." I didn't answer, just stared after him until he disappeared into the night. I didn't tell anyone that night. No need to spoil the rare moment of peace, but inside I felt the gears grinding again. The war wasn't over. It had just changed shape. The next morning, Trish called. Her voice was tight. "There's been a break-in. My place. Nothing taken, just papers scattered, files open. Someone left a cigar burning on my desk." "Message received," I said. "You okay?" "Shaken, angry, motivated." "Good. Because we'd need all the fire we could get." Joe ran surveillance on Doyle. He had ties to a former HOA contractor, a guy who disappeared right after the raids. We found out he'd been using a shell business to keep laundering money, even after Karen's arrest. Not just HOA money anymore. Real criminal money. And Doyle was his muscle. So we pivoted. From neighborhood drama to organized crime. Sheriff Yates brought in federal partners. Quietly. We couldn't risk tipping Doyle off. He was smart. Paranoid. Had burned 3 safe houses in the past year just because someone knocked twice. Meanwhile, I started noticing signs. A car parked too long near my trailer. Drones buzzing overhead. Max barking at shadows. I set up new motion sensors, rotated my routines, went full Delta again. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. Then came the fire. A warehouse downtown went up in flames. It used to be HOA property, supposedly vacant, supposedly condemned. Except Doyle had been seen entering it 2 days before. Fire crews found accelerant traces and a single object left untouched. A community newsletter with my photo circled in red. That night, I met with Yates. We need to make this public," I said. "People have to know the threat didn't end with Karen." He hesitated. "You sure? This could panic the town." I went, "Good. Let them panic. It'll make them pay attention." Trish broke the story under a new banner. Beyond the association. It wasn't just about HOAs anymore. It was about the rot beneath. How power, even on a small scale, could be hijacked by people who craved control more than order. The response was instant. Some readers thanked her. Others sent threats. One email read, "He'll be gone by sunset. Better get your last quote now." I installed floodlights. Reinforced the trailer doors. Slept in 2-hour shifts. Max never left my side. Then Doyle made his next move. He went to Neil. Showed up at his house in broad daylight, calm as a priest. Told him if he didn't recant his testimony, something bad might happen to his niece. Neil called me, shaking. "I can't do this," he said. I'm not built for it. Yes, you are, I said, because you already did the hardest part. You stood up. You think you can undo that now? He's not here to scare you. He's here because he's desperate. Neil took a breath. Then what do I do? Testify louder. He did. Trish filmed it. A personal interview, raw and unrehearsed, where Neil named names, dates, places, cried halfway through, said, I let people get hurt because I was scared. I won't be scared anymore. It was the most human thing I'd ever seen. The town rallied again. Candlelight vigil. Signs. Social media campaigns. And with that, the narrative flipped. Doyle wasn't a ghost anymore. He was a hunted man. Yates moved fast. Got a warrant. But Doyle vanished. I knew what that meant. He was planning something big. Something final. So I made a call, one I hadn't made in years, in a name stored under "In Case of Hell." He answered on the first ring. You still got that vest? I asked. Always. You finally need me? Yeah. And bring the quiet stuff. The good kind. Because the war wasn't over. It was about to go loud. The man who showed up at my trailer 2 days later was built like a bear and moved like a ghost. Name was Reyes. We served together in Afghanistan, back when everything was sand, sweat, and static. He didn't talk much then, and he talked even less now. But when I opened the door, and he nodded once, I knew it was game on. He brought a black duffel bag. Inside, cameras, comms, a short-barreled shotgun, and something I hadn't seen in years. A small, custom-built surveillance drone with night vision and thermal tracking. He set it on my workbench like it was a pet hawk. Doyle? He asked. Target confirmed, I said. Vanished after a failed scare campaign. Last sighting, 2 towns over. Likely regrouping. Still has teeth. Reyes didn't blink. Then we take them out. Quiet or loud? Start quiet. End however it has to. That night, we deployed the drone. Reyes flew it like it was part of his body. Skimming rooftops, scanning alleyways, checking abandoned structures. We found Doyle's van parked behind a shuttered pawn shop. Then we found Doyle himself. Inside, talking to 2 men I didn't recognize. Both armed. Both alert. Reyes zoomed in on their mouths and lip read. He's planning something, he muttered. Something public? I scanned the footage again. One word kept coming up. Town hall. Next morning, I met with Sheriff Yates and Trish. He's going to make a statement, I said. Not with words, with blood. Yates went pale. Town halls not secure. No metal detectors. No patrols. He could walk in with a backpack and change history. Then we get ahead of him. We set the trap. Town hall was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. An open forum to vote on a new community charter. The perfect place for Doyle to make a scene. We didn't cancel it. That would spook him. Instead, we locked down every exit, placed plainclothes deputies throughout the building, and Reyes and I took the high ground. Catwalk above the stage. I didn't wear body armor. That would have raised eyebrows. But Reyes did, under his jacket. He always was more sensible. The room filled up fast. Locals, press, some politicians. Martha sat in the front row with a thermos of sweet tea like she was watching a school play. Neil clutched a notebook, hand shaking. Then Doyle walked in, hair slicked back, clean jacket. Nothing obvious in his hands. But his eyes, they gave him away. wide, fixed, scanning. He moved toward the front, sat down, waited. Yates gave the opening speech. Trish filmed from the side. I waited. Reyes waited. The whole room was a held breath. Then Doyle stood. "Point of order," he said, calm and loud. "I have a statement." Yates nodded. "You can speak during open floor." "I'm speaking now." He reached into his coat. Reyes moved. Before Doyle's hand cleared his pocket, Reyes dropped from the catwalk like a falling shadow, slammed him against the chair, and yanked the weapon, a small pistol, out of his grip. Deputies closed in, screaming. Chaos. I was already on the ground, dragging Neil back and covering Martha. No one was hurt, but everyone was shaken. Doyle screamed as they cuffed him. "You're all blind. He's the threat." He pointed straight at me. "He started it. He brought this." Maybe, but I was going to finish it. The next 48 hours were a blur. Doyle was interrogated. He admitted to coordinating the arson, the threats, even the break-in at Trish's place. But the kicker? He wasn't acting alone. There were more. A second network. Former HOA affiliates. Contractors. Community consultants. People who saw Karen's empire fall and wanted to rebuild it under a new name. We were dealing with something bigger than we thought. Reyes and I drew up a list, cross-referenced old HOA emails, phone logs, surveillance footage. We started seeing patterns, secret meetings at a closed golf course, unregistered LLCs buying property. They were trying to rebrand. Same structure. New face. We called it the Gray Committee. Trish broke the story again. The HOA Hydra. 1 head falls. 2 more rise. It hit the front page of 3 regional papers. And then my trailer got shot up. Middle of the night. High caliber rounds. Ripped through the siding like paper. Max barked himself hoarse. I hit the ground. Rolled under the couch. Weapon ready. When it stopped, there was silence. Then a voice outside, loud and clear. "You think you won? We're just getting started." I stayed there until sunrise. By then, the feds were back. Yates called them in personally. We were past neighborhood politics. This was domestic terrorism. They offered me relocation, protection, witness security. I said no. "You're crazy," Reyes said. "You know that?" "Probably," I said. "But this is my home, and if I leave now, they win." He looked at me for a long second, then nodded. Then we end it. 1 move left. Their meeting's tonight. Same golf course. Let's crash their party. So we prepped. Not just us. Yates, Trish, Martha, even Neil. Because this time, we weren't just resisting. We were going to take back everything. And we weren't asking permission. The golf course was dead quiet when we arrived. Once a hub for retirees and weekend duffers, now it looked like a ghost town. Overgrown fairways, shattered windows in the clubhouse, and a flagpole that hadn't seen a flag in years. It was the perfect place for a meeting people didn't want found. Reyes and I moved through the shadows, eyes up, rifles slung low but ready. Sheriff Yates was stationed just out of sight with a state tactical unit. Trish had gone full war reporter. Bulletproof vest over her denim jacket, camera mounted to her shoulder. Neil stayed behind with Martha, but not before pressing a battered good luck coin into my palm. "Give 'em hell," he said. Through Reyes' thermal drone, we spotted 6 heat signatures inside the old clubhouse. 2 at the windows, 4 at the table, all armed. One of them was a face I recognized from old HOA newsletters. Darren Holt, former compliance officer. Another, a contractor Karen used for beautification projects. The rest, private security types, men with empty eyes and fast hands. Yates waited for my signal, but I needed more than arrests. I needed confession. Proof. So we let the meeting begin. Reyes set the drone to hover and record. Trish streamed audio to a secure backup. I crept close enough to hear it firsthand. Adios, they think we're done, Holt said, voice oily and calm. But we still control the infrastructure. Zoning boards, code enforcement, property acquisitions. If we rebrand, present ourselves as a revitalization council, they'll eat it up, another man finished. Especially with the town in panic. People beg for order when they're afraid. There it was. The plan. Not to lead through fear. At least, not openly. But through false security. Same chains, new paint. I whispered into the mic. We got it. Move. Lights exploded through the broken windows as Yates's team stormed in. Screams, boots, shouting. Reyes and I rushed the side door, sweeping for runners. One tried to bolt. Reyes dropped him with a non-lethal round. 10 minutes later, it was over. 6 cuffed suspects. 5 unregistered weapons. 2 laptops full of planning documents. One town finally cleared of the rot. We stood in the parking lot as the sun cracked the horizon. Trish interviewed Yates, then turned to me. What now? She asked. I looked around at the boarded windows, the scattered papers, the stunned silence. Now, I said, we rebuild, but on our terms. Weeks passed. The Gray Committee was exposed in full. Trish's final exposé went national. The DOJ opened a formal investigation into HOA corruption networks across the state. Darren Holt flipped first, gave up everyone for a deal. Others followed. The town came together in a way I never thought possible. Residents who'd once glared at me now stopped by to talk, to thank me, to ask if I'd consider running for something. Anything. I said no. I wasn't meant to lead. I was meant to clear the way. Martha became head of the new community council. Neil served as transparency officer. Reyes vanished like smoke after the dust settled. Left a note that just said, "You ever need me again?" Same number. Max and I went back to our routines. Early walks. Late coffee. Fixing the solar panels again. Peace didn't feel soft. It felt earned. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe it might last. Then, one evening, as the sky burned orange and the cicadas sang louder than the wind, I sat on the porch and opened a letter. No stamp, just tucked into the screen door. Inside, a photograph. Me, Trish, Yates, and Reyes outside the golf course. On the back, written in careful block print, "Nice move, but the game never ends." I folded it slowly, lit a match, watched the flame take it. Maybe the game never ends. Maybe there's always someone waiting in the wings. But I wasn't afraid, because now they'd have to go through me, and I wasn't going anywhere.